Before we get started, I highly recommend you watch his video. It'll make understanding my points a lot easier, and his video isn't very long, but if you choose not to, I explain things well enough for you to get the basic gist of my issues, as well as the core central idea of his points. With that being said, begin. So, I initially watched his video, then I spun the block and watched it again, through a recording. Because the points he made were so ridiculous, I actually jumped out of my bed and went to my computer. As you can probably tell, I don't like this video. I don't think this should get that much traction. This video is genuinely abysmal. Abysmal. I hate it because the baseline logic behind why this video even exists is disgusting from any perspective of any writer that has any semblance of self-respect in any way, shape, and form. And I'm gonna break it down for you. I was pretty invested. Not all of my points were well conveyed. I think the raw reaction is very fun, so I recommend watching it. But here is the more in-depth and edited breakdown. The first point to address with this video is the sheer number of contradictions Tim makes. He starts off the video with a couple statements about the nature of his rankings and his intentions, and those things align with the title. But as you watch the video, you will notice on many occasions him utilizing logic that does not fit with the initial statement and, in fact, actively contradicts it. This is an issue with its structure. That can be overlooked. But to me, what cannot be overlooked is the amount of bias and flawed logic he uses in his video. When you break down the logic of how he chooses his rankings, it doesn't make any sense at all, and comes off as extremely favorable to what he personally enjoys, and not based on genuine writing possibilities of each power. To start, it is important to establish what is Tim's criteria for ranking in this video.
Except today I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently. I'm going to be ranking superpowers. But I'm not ranking them on which ones are the strongest, I'm ranking them by which ones have the most narrative potential.
A complete lie.
What do I mean by this? Well, what I mean is, what kind of stories can you tell with a hero who has these powers? In what ways does it open your story up? And for the lower ranked powers, what kind of stories can you not tell with someone who has these powers?
This is not how he organizes these rankings. The most important thing he said is potential, and the shutting off of storytelling routes. But the potential of an ability, or even anything in a story, is entirely dependent on the skill of the author. Brandon Sanderson once made a really good point about ideas, and it is that ideas are cheap.
One thing to get over is the idea that a great idea is make a great book. Well, a certain quality of idea is important. However, a great writer can take the most basic ideas and make a brilliant novel out of it. And a terrible writer will take the best ideas in the world and will turn them into something terrible, okay?
Anyone can come up with any good idea. A good writer is someone who can turn any idea into something awe-inspiring. Candy Magic is based on a girl who has candy powers. One Piece is all about weird wacky powers like Rubber Body, a Jaguar Man, or a Bubble Paw Man who could teleport you across the world. In his list, he doesn't actually speak about the potential each power has. He simply mentions a bunch of the worst uses of those abilities, and then uses that to determine the power lacks narrative potential. This is a terrible way of writing a story. An author's job is to spend hours, days, weeks, even months mulling over and thinking about how you can bring out the most potential of anything within your series. If a character has a power, your first step is considering how far that power can go. It's stage 1 of a power system. What can I do with this character and their ability? For him, he doesn't do that at all. He just says a bunch of nonsense about what the ability often has been shown to do. Not once did he innovate or consider what an ability has the potential to do. So in this video, I'm going to do that for him. His list starts off with laser beams, and basically any other long-ranged attack. This one is simple. If you want to make a character interesting who is primarily long-ranged, just intertwine their long-ranged ability with an aspect of their backstory, mentality, or power expression. In my novel Gangster Reincarnation, I have a character named Yukio. She has laser magic, the ability to generate and fire extremely powerful lasers from any part of her body. In the beginning, she is largely limited to just shooting single powerful blasts. But as the story progresses and places pressure on her to adapt, she grows in this ability and how she uses it. Remember, he said that this ability does not allow for much creative expression. To answer if this is possible, let's look at some of the cool things lasers can do. Ahem. Laser cooling creates matter. It can push objects, it carries information, and above all of it, it just looks really cool. Like, come on, come on. Laser beams? Isn't that cool? All the interesting ways lasers interact with the environment. If you center a character around these ideas and explore them, you will find something genuinely interesting to create a conflict over. Or maybe your character's real ability is prisms, or the focusing and spreading of light. They can create prisms to trap enemies, and within that prism, they can focus light and shoot laser beams at them. I know, this is extending beyond just laser beams, but laser powers are almost always a byproduct of some deeper cause, not just their singular sole power. Superman is supercharged with sunlight and uses it to shoot high beam powers. What in the world did I just say? Superman is supercharged with sunlight and uses it to shoot super high powered beams. The more sun, the more strength, leading to some insane moments. Cyclops' eyes are connected to a universe of pure kinetic energy. Rarely is someone just given lasers with no other explanation or power to assist, so it's weird for him to mention it here. See how his ranking doesn't make sense once you actually start considering possibility and potential, and not judging based on how people in the past have used the power? So what if past authors and writers lacked creativity? That has nothing to do with the power itself or those who take on the task of tackling these abilities. In my raw reaction, I made a point about almost every ability he mentioned. If you want more examples on how things like flight and armor can be fantastic for plot construction, conflict regulation, and stakes building, please check that out.
Next in the C tier, we have the power to become insubstantial, the ability to pass through surfaces. This power is more interesting than flight or lasers, but it's also more problematic. It's a powerful ability that gives your heroes real staying power, but it also makes them really, really hard to kill in a way that's not very interesting. This lowers the stakes of a challenge. Who cares what your villain throws at your hero can just phase through it.
Phasing. This time, I will be using two shows in particular, both My Hero Academia and Naruto. Both series have a significant and powerful cast member who uses phasing powers. Starting with the best one, Obito Uchiha brings an ability like this to its most imposing. Obito is an individual who has had everything taken away from him. Bright eyes, believing in his future and the future of the world. After a series of horrifying events taking place during the Great Ninja War, Obito would see his best friend kill the love of his life. This moment caused Obito to awaken his Mangekyo Sharingan and develop the ability Kamui. From a conflict level, Kamui is an ability that lets Obito become virtually untouchable to most people in the series. They see him, they can be affected by him, but they cannot touch him. The only ones who can are two individuals, and the two most important people in Obito's life, Minato and Kakashi. From a character perspective, the ability is meant to represent how, in the moment Rin died, Obito no longer believed he belonged in the world he was living in. To him, he was in hell, a nightmare, and just as he no longer is a part of this world, he's unable to be affected by anything this world sends after him. Many characters are forced to fight Obito and learn the limitations and nuances of his power. When Obito phases, he is unable to attack back. He is only able to keep Kamui active for 5 minutes. If you have Kamui yourself, then you are able to harm him, and if you are simply faster than his reaction speed, you can tag him before he teleports. They deconstruct his power, and the pressure his power creates forces others to innovate and bring out more unique routes of defeating him. Regarding Minato and Kakashi, these two act as anchors who connected with Obito before he was dragged into this nightmare. They are the only ones who still have that connection, so it makes sense they are the only ones who can bypass his Kamui. The next character is Mirio. Mirio's phasing is powerful, but for most of his life it was a hindrance. The ability had so many problems, it took him years before he could actually use it on any significant level. But his perseverance and will to be a hero allowed him to master the ability and turn what was one of the most difficult quirks to live with into one of the most powerful. Forced to hold his breath when phasing, the constant feeling of falling, sound and light passing by him, sending him into complete sensory deprivation. Every action needs thought, intellect, and planning. He has to be careful and sure of every action or he will get himself killed. It is the height of mastery, and the confidence that comes from that mastery bleeds into his character and how he maneuvers throughout the series. Both Mirio and Obito are extremely proactive. These powers are not just used for avoiding danger, but instead used to charge into danger with all their limitations in mind, and the enemy has to innovate to bypass them. He says that a character who is able to phase past all danger is not very exciting, but that's only if you have them standing there just doing nothing. There is no search for possibility in that. These are two of the examples of the main issue I have with Tim's video. He never considers possibility, which is literally the foundation of the list. How would you make these powers interesting? He doesn't explore alternative routes at all. It seems like he made this whole video because he doesn't like Superman, and these other powers are just added to make the list more sizable.
I'm not saying that you could never tell a good story with someone who has a very low ranked power. I'm just saying that it's a lot harder and you have to use a lot more consideration than when you're writing a story for someone who has a high ranked power.
I disagree. More consideration is relative. What is your threshold of difficulty? Is it so shallow that choosing to make a character only tangible to certain attacks is hard or considered difficult? He acts like the considerations or problems with these powers are noticeably difficult. But I fail to comprehend what the heck he even means by this. If you pay attention to the emotions he displays and the negative connotations he adds to the powers, you will see he believes difficulty to write equates to worse potential or worse quality. Gojo is a great example of a modern character who is difficult to write. His infinity means that no normal attack can hurt him. His strength means that he can decimate enemies, and his sheer talent and skill trips up his enemies at every turn. The backbone of JJK Season 1 and 2 was on how to deal with the mountain that is Satoru Gojo. What I'm going to say is just my opinion, but I wouldn't be surprised if the domain expansion's guaranteed hit and domain amplification were direct products of Infinity's hard to counter quality. Things that would influence the entire story and enriching the power system. No one believes Gojo's Infinity takes away from the story. No one thinks Unlimited Void one-shot kill takes away from his character. These things add to Gojo and fuel our love of his presentation. Godlike powers just means you need godlike counters. This video is like saying a math test that has 4 multiple choice answers is more difficult than a math test with 3 multiple choice answers. But the question is the same. If you understand the foundation, then to you, the difference is meaningless. If you don't, you make a 13-minute video.
Unlike the C tier, powers in B tier usually provide a lot of avenues for creative expression. Super Strength is the classic B tier power. A character with super strength can do incredible things, but they're just as vulnerable to pain and death. This is why this power is the most common power in storytelling. Super Strength is a very interactive power, which puts it above Flight and Armor, but it's not as fun to watch as some of the powers we'll cover later.
First of all, Super Strength is a common power, because it is far more fun to watch someone who does not have the limitations of standard human beings. Most heroes rank in the super athlete tier, even powerless ones for this reason. It's incredibly easy to write, so I think by his logic it would be S tier.
But it's not as fun to watch as some of the powers we'll cover later.
Hold on. Since when is watching Hulk tear apart entire cities or splitting continents not fun to watch? Although we never saw it, Reggie Gigas has enough strength to move continents. And that's not cool or fun to watch? Kratos displays an insane level of strength all the time. It's very fun to watch and write if you know what you're doing.
Next in B tier, stretchiness.
Bro thinks Luffy is B tier.
The stretchy power is in this tier because it allows for so much personal expression. Heroes with this power can really use creative, out-of-the-box thinking. It pairs well with clever characters, and it allows people to demonstrate their uniqueness in really physical, tactile ways.
Then wouldn't it be S tier? Allows for a lot of creative expression, so it has a lot of potential for visual and thematic storytelling. Inconsistency. You said in this video that it was about potential and storytelling roots. A huge problem with him and his logic is he is referring to past happenings to determine future successes and failures. In Fairy Tail, Elfman was forced to fight an opponent who completely outclassed him. Everyone knew he couldn't win, so Elfman decided to transform into a crocodile beast soul that had high endurance as well as the secondary effect of rough skin, which damaged his opponent every time they attacked him. This turned the fight into a pain endurance match. Can Elfman endure his enemy's powerful attacks before his body gives out? This was amazing because it was a testament to Elfman's character and his tenacity, as well as a display of the importance of winning in this match for him. Yes, he just stood there and received the hits, but it's everything within the story surrounding it that made it a fan favorite scene. An underdog victory, everyone including the audience expected him to lose. See how creativity is the key to making any power good?
Before we get to the S tier, let's go over the stinkers. These are the powers that will only make your story harder to tell. D tier, super speed. This is an obvious D tier for me. Super speed is at best boring, at worst world-breaking. The thing is, if this power lets the character functionally stop time, then they are basically gods with complete control over the physical world. And if it doesn't, then they just have the flight power, but on the ground. So either they are an unbeatable god who is never challenged by any opponent who doesn't have super speed, or they are able to have all the effectiveness of a motorcycle.
Super speed. This one is abysmal. Terrible. Just don't make them too fast. In my raw reaction, I mentioned some ways to work around OP super speed, such as when a character goes too fast and enters time freeze mode, make it so that it affects their abilities by stealing their future speed. Because they push it so hard now, in the future, they won't be able to hit those maximum speed levels, and every time they do, achieving that becomes harder and harder until they lose all their speed completely. A fun way to make godlike speed interesting, enjoyable, as well as build stakes. He says, invincibility or the denial of harm is a boring power that does not help the stakes or invest the audience. I say, this is ridiculous. If you have a character who is unable to be harmed, then give them a caveat. They cannot be harmed when they are fighting against physical opponents, but spiritual or magic abilities can harm them. He says the ability does not create stakes. Yeah, you're correct. No ability creates stakes or impact until you make its flaws apparent and present in the cause and effect of the story. He puts super strength as B tier, but if a character can crush anyone with a single finger, it is not very interesting. It's specifically what they cannot do and how they overcome those challenges that enriches their power set and their relation with that power set. Mind control. I'm going to let Reaction Kaiser answer this one.
Mind control is simply too powerful. It is a power that if left
Then make it less powerful then. Oh my gosh! Wow! Make it less powerful then. It's just too strong. Then make it so that there's a caveat to using the mind control. Huh?
left unchecked makes telling a story in
If left unchecked. If. So don't leave it unchecked. I want all of you to pay attention, because whenever he speaks of Superman's powers, his tone and word choice changes very strongly. But when he speaks of other abilities in the same tiers, suddenly he doesn't carry that same negative tone. I believe this is clearly showcasing his intent. The reason he made this whole list is because he does not like Superman. He doesn't like the Man of Steel. And I think that's fine. Growing up, I was never the biggest Superman fan. But that doesn't mean the powers that compose him are not interesting or cannot be interesting. I don't like his extreme bias. If you're going to apply logic in a list, the logic cannot be faulty, biased, or malleable. It needs to be consistent.